I want you to try a little visualization with me. It might be a bit uncomfortable, but just go with it. Picture a football field.
Okay, got it. Standard field.
Yep. You know the size, the green grass, the whole thing. Now, picture 4 of them, lined up side by side.
That's a huge amount of land.
It is. Now, in the time it takes me to do this, imagine all of that, all 4 fields, just turning to barren, useless dust. Gone.
Wow, that's incredibly fast.
It's terrifyingly fast. And according to the data we're digging into today from the Safe Soil Movement, from UN reports, that is the actual rate we're talking about.
Every single second.
Every single second. The equivalent of 4 football fields of healthy soil becomes degraded. That's 100 million hectares a year.
It's a number that's so big it's hard to even process. And I think the problem is when people hear a term like soil degradation, their eyes kind of glaze over.
Right. Sounds technical.
It sounds like, a problem for a farmer somewhere. Maybe your food gets a little more expensive. An annoyance.
I'll admit that's where my head was at before I started reading these sources. But looking at these reports, UN Environment Program, the Convention to Combat Desertification, it's a totally different scale.
Mm-hmm.
The question we're really asking in this deep dive isn't, is this bad for farming? It's, is this an existential crisis?
And, looking at the evidence, existential isn't hyperbole. It's just accurate. We depend on healthy soil for, 95% of the food we produce?
95%.
So if the soil system collapses, the food system collapses. They call it the silent global crisis because it's happening right under our feet. And we walk all over it.
So today, we're going to stop walking and start digging into it. We're going to look at the timeline, which is, frankly, uncomfortably short, how soil actually dies, and the climate connection that almost nobody talks about.
And we should probably start with that timeline. Because the data, what I started calling the doomsday map in my head, it doesn't point to 2100 or some far-off date.
No, it doesn't.
It points to 2050.
That's within my lifetime. That's within the mortgage term on a house you'd buy today.
Exactly. The headline finding from these UN bodies is that at current rates, 95% of Earth's soil could be degraded by 2050.
95%. That's basically all of it.
It's everything that matters for, human survival. But you can't just look at that number on its own.
Right. There has to be context.
You have to overlay it with demographics. By that same year, tell me 50, the global population is projected to hit 9.8 billion people.
So you have these 2 lines on a graph, and they're about to cross in the worst possible way.
A total demographic collision.
Population is skyrocketing to its highest point ever, and our ability to grow food is just plummeting.
We're heading toward a point where we need to produce more food than ever, right at the moment the planet is losing its ability to grow it.
Okay, so that really frames the stakes, but I want to slow down for a second because we keep using this word degraded. What does that actually mean? I mean, dirt is dirt, right? How do you break dirt?
Yeah, that's the common misconception, that it's just this inert stuff, crushed rock that holds a plant up. But healthy soil is a living thing. It's an ecosystem. And the key metric all these sources come back to is something called organic matter.
So that's like dead leaves, old roots, bugs, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But it's what that dead stuff does. When you have enough of it, say between 3 and 6%, it acts like a glue. It gives the soil structure. It creates little pockets for air and, most importantly, for water.
Oh, okay.
When you strip that organic matter away, the whole structure just collapses. The soil becomes basically sand or dust. It's dead.
There was an analogy in the research that really stuck with me. They called it the fragile skin of the planet.
It's a perfect way to think about it. I mean, your skin holds in moisture. It protects you. Soil does that for the earth. And just like skin, it's not easy to replace.
The numbers on that were just humbling. It takes up to 1,000 years to naturally create just 2 or 3 centimeters of topsoil.
1,000 years. So for all practical purposes, for any human planning, it's a non-renewable resource.
Right.
We treat it like it's infinite, like the air. But it's much more like oil. Once you burn through a millennium of development in a few decades, it's gone.
And as if the food problem wasn't enough, the sources point out this leads to a kind of double disaster because it's not just about growing things, it's about water.
This is the part that I think catches most people by surprise. You see a flood on the news one week and a drought the next week, and you think they're opposites.
Yeah, of course.
But very often, they're just 2 symptoms of the exact same problem: broken soil.
How does that work?
Well, think of that healthy soil, the stuff with all the organic matter, as a big sponge. It's porous. When it rains, it soaks up the water, holds it, and lets it slowly trickle down into the groundwater.
Okay. Makes sense.
But degraded soil, It's compacted, it seals over, it can even become hydrophobic. It actually repels water.
So the water just bounces off the top.
It just runs right off. So you get a big storm, and instead of recharging the aquifers, the water just flashes across the surface. That causes a flood, and it carries the last of the topsoil with it into the ocean.
And then a few weeks later, when the sun is out,
There's no water left in the ground for the plants. So you get the flood and you get the drought, sometimes in the very same place.
the worst of both worlds.
Exactly.
And we're seeing this play out right now. The research brought up a case study in Catalonia in Spain.
Spain is really the canary in the coal mine for Europe. It's a huge food exporter. If their farms fail, grocery stores in Germany and France feel it, and they are in a really, really severe drought.
There was this quote from a farmer there, John Gardenius. It's just heartbreaking. He said, "Families are fed up because the effort of the whole year is useless."
You can just feel the exhaustion in that. And it's not just a rural problem. The sources also had a case study from India, from Bengaluru.
Right, which people used to call the Garden City.
Famous for it. Lush, green, plenty of water. But now, it's facing a critical water emergency.
Yeah, I read about one of the residents, Rahul Sinha. He's not a farmer, he's an economist living in the city. And his family has to recycle gray water.
Wow.
Water from washing vegetables, just to have enough to flush the toilets because the taps run dry for hours every day.
And that's what soil degradation looks like when it hits a modern city.
Yeah.
The sponge that used to surround Bengaluru, all the forests and wetlands, it's been paved over or degraded, so the rain just doesn't stick around anymore.
It just changes what the threat feels like. It's not just, oh, bread might get more expensive. There might be no water in the tap.
And that brings us to the third piece of this puzzle. We've talked about food, we've talked about water. Now we have to talk about climate change.
This was the biggest shock for me in all the research. I feel like I'm reasonably up to speed on climate issues,
Yeah.
fossil fuels, methane.
Sure.
I have never really heard anyone talk about the ground itself as a massive driver of climate change. The text called it a hidden carbon bomb.
That is not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Here is the fact that usually floors people. You ready for this?
Lay it on me.
There is 3 times more carbon stored in the soil than there is in the entire atmosphere.
Wait, what? 3 times? That seems impossible.
It's true. It is this massive, massive carbon sink. I mean, think about it. Plants breathe in CO2. They die. Microbes pull that dead plant matter underground. The carbon gets locked into the soil.
Okay, so it's stored there safely.
Until we come along and disturb it. When soil erodes, when we plow it up and expose it to the air, that locked-in carbon, it oxidizes, it combines with oxygen, and goes right back up into the atmosphere as CO2.
So we're basically taking the lid off this massive carbon container and just letting it all float away.
And it creates this horrible feedback loop. We release carbon from the soil, which warms the planet. The warmer planet creates more extreme weather, more wind, more rain.
Which causes more soil erosion.
Which releases more carbon.
It's a death spiral.
Professor Watson, who used to lead the IPCC, the big UN climate body, he was really clear about this in the notes. He says governments are totally focused on emissions from cars and factories, but they're basically ignoring land degradation.
And his point is you can't solve one without the other.
You mathematically cannot solve climate change if the land itself is bleeding carbon into the atmosphere.
And it's not just the carbon going up. There's another part to it, right?
Right.
What happens when all that eroded dirt ends up in the water?
Right, sedimentation. That topsoil washes into rivers. It makes the water cloudy, turbid, and that blocks sunlight from getting to the plants and algae living in the water.
And those are the plants that are supposed to be absorbing CO2.
Exactly. So we're releasing a ton of stored carbon while simultaneously blinding the very things in the water that could help absorb it. We're hitting the system from both sides.
Okay, I think we have firmly established the existential part of the question. This is terrifying. So we need to pivot to the how. What are we actually doing to cause this?
Well, the #1 driver in all the reports is industrial agriculture. But it's not just growing food. That's the problem.
It's a specific kind of farming.
It's the shift to intensive monocultures. The sources list a few specific culprits, like coffee, cotton, palm oil, soybean, and wheat.
It's not that those plants are bad, right?
No, not at all. It's how we grow them. We clear a complex forest, which has all these different roots holding the soil together, and we replace it with neat rows of a single crop.
Which doesn't hold the ground together as well.
Not even close. So when a heavy rain comes, the soil just washes away.
Yeah.
And then, to keep those single crops alive, We basically wage chemical warfare on the land.
The pesticides and fertilizer?
Yep, the agrochemical cycle. You pump the soil with these chemicals. At first, your yields shoot up. It looks like a miracle. But what the research explains is that those chemicals are killing the microbiome.
They kill the good bacteria and fungi that make the soil work.
Right. They kill the things that create that organic glue. So the soil gets weaker, the plants get weaker, and so you have to use even more chemicals the next year. It's a total addiction cycle.
And you're doing permanent damage the whole time.
Permanent damage. And then in dry parts of the world, you have salinization. If you irrigate land in a hot place and the water evaporates, it leaves the salt behind.
And eventually the soil gets too salty for anything to grow.
Anything at all. The reports say that affects up to 50% of irrigated lands in some areas.
There was one other cause in the notes that just felt so modern and devastating. And it wasn't about farming, it was war.
Yeah, this is a tragic one. We think about the human cost of war, but we don't think about the ecocide.
The sources mentioned Ukraine specifically.
They estimate that 1/3 of Ukraine's farmland, and remember, Ukraine is the breadbasket for a huge part of the world, has been contaminated by the war.
And contaminated doesn't just mean churned up by tanks.
No. We're talking about heavy metals from exploded shells, chemicals from explosives, industrial waste. The report also mentioned white phosphorus use in Lebanon. This stuff doesn't just wash away. It poisons the soil for generations.
So even when peace comes, the land itself is a long-term casualty.
A very long-term casualty.
Let's talk about the price tag on all this. Because even if you don't connect with the environmental side, the economic numbers are just brutal.
They're staggering. The direct financial loss from soil erosion is estimated at $400 billion a year.
400 billion.
Annually. And that's probably a low estimate. We're losing 75 billion tons of soil every year.
I can't even picture that number.
And the cost isn't spread evenly. The reports highlight sub-Saharan Africa, where erosion is cutting crop yields by 30 to 50%.
In a place already struggling with food security, losing half your harvest it's a catastrophe.
It creates what the UN calls new deserts. And people can't live there. So it drives migration, it drives conflict. And while a huge portion of this is in Africa, the reports are clear. This is a global problem. South America, India, China, the US, everyone is losing ground.
Okay, I am sufficiently weighed down by existential dread. Please tell me the sources had a chapter on solutions. Is this reversible?
Lightly.
Yeah.
No, don't start digging a bunker just yet. This was actually the most surprising part of the research for me.
Yeah.
The Save Soil movement, the UN reports, they're all very clear.
Yeah.
It is reversible. The soil can be brought back to life.
The biology can be fixed.
It can. The window is closing, for sure, but it's still open. The target is to get that organic content back into the 3 to 6% range.
Yeah.
If you could do that, the whole ecosystem can reboot itself. The sponge comes back.
So how do we actually do that?
It's all about shifting to what's called regenerative agriculture. It means you stop treating soil like a mine and you start managing it like a living system.
Things like not ploughing the fields all the time.
Exactly. No-till farming. Yeah. Using cover crops so the soil is never left bare and exposed. Bringing animals back onto the land to fertilize it naturally.
It almost sounds like going back to older ways of farming, but with, modern science behind it.
That's a great way to put it. And we have high-tech tools now. The sources talk about using satellite data.
To see the problem from space.
Yeah. We can identify erosion hotspots from orbit before they get too bad. We can monitor a region's vegetation and see when it's in trouble and then, intervene with policy.
Are governments actually doing this? Is anyone listening?
Some are starting to. The UK government, for example, is actually funding projects to measure soil health. They set a national goal of land neutrality.
Which means?
You can't degrade a piece of land without restoring another piece of land to balance it out. The amount of productive land has to stay stable.
That seems like a pretty common sense baseline to have.
Better late than never. But Pravina Sridhar from Save Soil, she made the most important point, I think. She said that policy only changes when the public understands there's a crisis.
Visibility is key.
Exactly. If people just think soil is dirt, politicians have no reason to act. But people understand it's the foundation of their food, their water, their climate. Then things can change.
So to bring it all the way back to our mission for this deep dive, is soil degradation an existential crisis?
I don't see how you can look at this evidence and say no. I mean, yes, absolutely. Soil is the planet's operating system. Food, water, climate, biodiversity. It all runs on that little bit of organic matter.
If the soil dies, the whole machine just breaks down.
And it's the engine underneath so many of the other crises we talk about constantly. If we don't fix the soil, we can't really fix the others.
And we have to just fundamentally change how we think about it. It's not this infinite free resource.
It is non-renewable in our lifetime. We're spending this inheritance that took literally millions of years to build up, and we're burning through it in decades.
That's the thought I want to leave everyone with. The next time you walk in a park or just, buy an apple from the store, think about that hidden ingredient, the dirt itself. It isn't just something you wipe off your shoes. It's the skin of the world, and we have to start treating it that way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.